Part 66. Heaven-Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 661. Hedong in 30 years, Hexi in 30 years. Now their hope of escape fell into Wu Yu's hands. With Wu Yu holding such a handle, the right to speak naturally fell to Wu Yu. Wu Yu was waiting for their answer. Of course they were discussing secretly before answering, but now they barely recovered and realized the seriousness of the matter. While waiting for their reply, Wu Yu transferred all his identities to the fusion tower in an upright manner, and then he took out Juxing Sweji's Sumuru bag. Although the other party did not bring some extra treasures when they went on an adventure on the Taku Immortal Road, these are enough for now. There are quite a few of those Dao Yuan Shen pills alone. Wu Yu was in need of such elixirs. Now that his body was improving, his clone was lacking too much. Wu Yu urgently needed a large amount of elixirs and fairy spirits to cultivate it. He didn't even count them carefully, so he picked out all the Dao Yuan Shen pills and threw them into the floating life tower, letting the 1,000 clones refine and absorb them on their own. As he played the game on the Wangxian terrace, the clones would only become more and more numerous. The stronger. And they seemed to be thinking and hesitating, but in fact they were communicating through secret transmission techniques. Prince Feng said, "You should see clearly that he has had puppets before, but they are definitely not this strong. The two puppets combined are enough to rival any of us. I have never seen any in the Yanhuang ancient territory. There are so many puppets, so I suspect that he also got this puppet in the Taku Immortal Road. It is undeniable that Wu Yu got too many treasures in the Taku Immortal Road." Princess Yuking said, "Shangling Taoist tools, pagodas, puppets, ancient crystal stones, and even more things. Where did Wu Yu get the luck to get so many treasures? Incredible." Feng Jianqing said, "This is not the key. The key is that he has suddenly become stronger now, and his advantages are more obvious. However, he clearly does not even have the realm of Yuan Shen. To be able to cross to this level is unprecedented, which means that there may be more in him. Baby. But he has no background. Now, he is against us, everyone knows what to do." Emperor Shu said, "But now we can only follow his wishes. What do you want now? Are you really afraid of us, or are you playing tricks on us? Tricking us? Does he have the guts?" Prince Feng was angry. "Little prince, please don't say anything." "What do you think?" Princess Yuking asked. The little prince shook his head and said, "I don't understand either. However, if you want to get his things, you have to seize the opportunity to snatch the pagoda. But he has two puppets. With him and the puppets, any one of us may be able to deal with it now. No, if we really want to rank him by battle, I think we have to limit his two puppets first." Everyone felt that it seemed to make sense. Prince Feng said, "Don't think too complicated about Wu Yu. I think he is really afraid. After all, compared to the rest of us, especially the forces behind us, he is undoubtedly a mantis trying to control the car. If he really wants to, if you want to survive, you have to rely on us later." For them, Wu Yu's current attitude is indeed somewhat difficult to distinguish between true and false. The little prince said, "If the battle just now was an accident, then we must make an agreement that the battle will be a battle, but we must not kill anyone. You can't kill people. How can we rob Wu Yu's pagoda? Wu Yu must die," King Gu Yunsi said. Princess Yuking said, "I told Wu Yu not to kill anyone. Our purpose is to kill him. Next, whoever encounters Wu Yu will have to take on the task of killing him and get the things to us first. Let's talk about it later. Then others will also have to fight for the time being. In the first round, you will always meet Wu Yu. Now there are only 7 people. Except for the person who fights Wu Yu, the other 6 people will compete normally. The winner will enter the top 4. The person who kills Wu Yu will automatically enter top 4. If the kill fails, let's continue to see the situation. At least Wu Yu's next opponent must kill him and not let him go any further, Princess Yuking said. Everyone didn't have much opinion. Anyway, Zhu Xingqiu is dead. There will always be one person who will get a bye, which will be unfair. It would be fair if the opponent is replaced by Wu Yu. At this time, one person came to talk to Wu Yu. Because the young prince was from the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, everyone asked him to come. The young prince did not refuse and said directly to Wu Yu, "We can let you participate in the competition. If you are competing among them, you will get a fair name, and you will have a share in the final distribution of treasures, but you have to abide by an agreement and a condition." What he said was basically what Wu Yu expected. Wu Yu smiled and said, "Please tell me." The little prince said, "There is an agreement that all of us must abide by. You just violated this agreement. This agreement is that no one can be killed in a duel. If there is a violation, everyone will be disqualified from the competition. It is the same for everyone." Before he could finish speaking, Wu Yu said, "That's no problem, I want that too. The reason why I struck hard just now was purely because Juxing Sweji didn't abide by the agreement and wanted to kill people first, showing no mercy. So that irritated me. Of course I abide by this agreement." Seeing Wu Yu being so sincere, everyone reluctantly nodded, and then the little prince said, "There is another more important thing, which is one of the most important conditions for you to participate in the war, that is, the puppet is not your own fighting power, you cannot use it in this situation. For example, we have agreed with each other not to use talismans." They thought that Wu Yu might argue about this request, but unexpectedly, before the little prince finished speaking, Wu Yu nodded and said, "That's fine. I know the rules. We are competing with fair strength, so that others can be convinced and finally obey the arrangement and distribution of treasures. I can completely follow this agreement and conditions, but you must also agree to my two conditions." This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. They didn't expect that Wu Yu himself had conditions. Although they felt uncomfortable, they still nodded and let Wu Yu speak first. Wu Yu said, "First, I accidentally killed the 9-star Snow Chi just now, and also talked about the eternal shark, but I contributed treasures, so I hope that after leaving here, everyone will not spread this matter. I have regretted my impulse just now," Wu Yu said sincerely. It sounds like he is really scared, not crazy. After all, if he is really cruel enough, he can just leave. In that case, they will be trapped here and may never get out. They discussed it for a while. Their original purpose was to kill Wu Yu. On the one hand, they were jealous of Wu Yu's talent. On the other hand, they saw that he had no background and no one would care if he was killed. So they naturally agreed to this useless request easily. Princess Yuxing said, "Don't worry, the death of Juxing Shueqi was his own fault. The eternal shark was ordered by Emperor Yu, and it has nothing to do with you. We will not spread these things." This response was within Wu Yu's expectations. He then said, "The second request is that the reason why I am willing to take out these things is that I am worried that you will target my Dongsheng Shenzhou after you go out, so you must promise and swear here that you will never do this." This is also very easy for them. So everyone agreed quickly. In fact, Wu Yu was sneering. He was not softening at this time. He said these two conditions just to make them believe that he was very sincere in wanting to protect Dongsheng Shenzhou, and at the same time he also had the opportunity to fight for the treasures on him. They still have 7. I have to make use of their cold-bloodedness and greed. Otherwise, how can I return all the things they want to give me? Even if you are plundering, since you are fighting here, there is no room for negotiation on life and death. In Wangxiantai, no matter who you are, you only have one life now." Soon, it was agreed that they also needed Wu Yu to announce how many things he had on him. It was impossible to check, but Wu Yu told them that the most valuable one was the pagoda, the second was the upper spiritual weapon, and the third was the two puppets. Of course, they doubted whether there were other treasures, but Wu Yu would not let them check his samurai bag. After a stalemate, they gave up. After all, it was useless for them. Once Wu Yu was killed, they would know everything. For the time being, the first prize was set as a pagoda that could escape, the second was the upper spiritual weapon, and the third was the two puppets, black and white impermanence. What they didn't know was that black and white impermanence came from the fusion tower. After the agreement was made, the real game began. The task of assigning fell on Wang Zhixun. He began to draw a simple array on the Wangxian terrace. This was the most commonly used array for randomly assigning opponents in battles in the Yanhuang ancient domain. Wu Yu also knew about it. It was called the dual array. Everyone present was very familiar with this array. No one could make a high price. Finally, after the array was formed, it could only randomly select two people when it was operated. Under the watchful eyes of the public, only the array could randomly assign opponents, which could be absolutely fair. Begin. Wang Zhixun operated the array once. There were 2 pointers on the array, which rotated rapidly. There was friction and collision during the rotation. Finally, the 2 pointers pointed to 2 different people. Princess Yuxiang, 8-winged golden pen. It was indeed very fair, otherwise, Wu Yu would definitely be the first to fight. Of course, it would not be long before Wu Yu's turn came. This was also a formal battle for them, which was related to their ranking and the treasures they got. So in this battle, they must be fighting for life and death. Generally speaking, the strength of the people is not much different, and in the end both sides will suffer losses. Therefore, this is also one of Wu Yu's goals. Everyone is fighting, and he kills them one by one under these rules. At the same time, he can also take the opportunity to understand everyone's ability. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 662. In fact, there was nothing they could do. The current situation was that even if they besieged Wu Yu, it was unlikely that they could prevent Wu Yu from leaving. Therefore, we can only resort to tricks and rely on fierce fighting to take advantage of the opportunity to kill. And now, the fierce battle begins. Wu Yu and others watched the deadly battle between Princess Yuking and the 8-winged golden roc. Princess Yuking is worthy of being a famous figure in the Beiming Empire. In the world of Jiangfu, she is much bigger than the 8-winged golden roc. Moreover, this place is not suitable for the use of the 8-winged golden roc. This golden roc has 4 large golden wings on each side of its ribs. There are 8 golden wings in total, waving in the strong wind and making a hunting sound. However, due to the limited space of Wang Xiantai, he could not let go and soar, and his speed and space for display were greatly affected. From the very beginning, he was suppressed by Princess Yuki, who was covered in cold air and covered with ice and snow, and there were many dangers. However, for this rare and valuable treasure, the 8-winged golden roc certainly refused to admit defeat. He was very tenacious and terrifyingly tough. Even if he was suppressed, he would try his best to fight with his eyes red. It is this attitude of not even caring about her life that makes Princess Yuking very afraid. If she wants to defeat her opponent, she knows that she must pay a high price. For the top one, the pagoda that can control everyone's life and death, she must defeat 3 opponents to win the first place. The 8-winged golden roc was not considered the strongest among this group of people. She had to be satisfied with this opponent, but in the actual duel, she realized that no opponent here could be underestimated. In the end, she defeated her opponent. However, she also paid a certain price, such as huge consumption, physical depletion, and even the 8-winged golden roc's natal magical power was squeezed into her body, causing it to take a long time to recover from the injury. The combat effectiveness has been reduced by at least 20%. After the battle, this beautiful girl's face turned pale and she silently walked to the edge to recuperate. Of course, the eight-winged golden roc was even worse. At this time, his golden feathers were frozen into dark green, and he was shaking in the corner, dying. He had been defeated, and now he was severely injured. It would probably take some time to regain some strength. At this time, no one came to help him. After the battle, Wu Yu was very satisfied. He hoped that every battle would be like this. Next, according to their initial agreement, Wang Zhixun had to select the second group of opponents within a quarter of an hour. The magic circle rotated again. After witnessing the first battle, everyone was a little nervous. Some of them felt that you will be more nervous when you meet Wu Yu. There are many unknown things about Wu Yu. Wu Yu was also watching. Fortunately, the person fighting in the second battle was still not him. Prince Feng, Emperor Tree. In Wu Yu's eyes, the ghost cultivator and the demon were about the same strength. The gap in strength between them was much smaller than that between Princess Yuking and the eight-winged golden roc. So when they realized that their opponent was each other, they all took a deep breath, and their expressions were not very good. Of course, except for the little prince, everyone present was strong. Although everyone wanted to fight the little prince, it was obvious that Prince Feng and Emperor Shu did not have such luck. They quickly adjusted their moods, and with silent expressions, one person and one tree walked to the battle site. Then, quickly start a shocking battle. Just as Wu Yu expected, this battle was even more intense. The methods of the two of them also opened Wu Yu's eyes. Prince Feng's ghost cultivation methods were very vicious and destructive. He was even proficient in many ghost cultivation formations. However, the body of the Emperor Tree is not flesh and blood, and is different from humans and other monsters. Therefore, the Taoist magical power of ghost cultivators seems to be slightly less effective against flesh and blood. This is also the reason why Prince Feng is unwilling to encounter the Emperor Tree. But despite this, it is difficult for the Emperor Tree to do anything to him, which makes this deadly battle even more anxious. In fact, as long as you break into the top 4, the possibility of getting treasures is very high. You only need to win the first game, and if you don't lose 2 games in a row, you may get a huge treasure. After all, the first battle is actually the most important. Just like this, they all tried their best to fight desperately, and the fight was very exciting. Wu Yu was also eye-opening. The harder they kill, the happier he is. In fact, maybe each of them wants to get all the treasures alone and then kill everyone. On the battlefield, they didn't look like an alliance against Wu Yu at all. If they hadn't agreed not to kill, people would probably have died. However, Wu Yu estimated that if this continued, it would be difficult for them to control themselves from killing. After all, sometimes if you want to defeat your opponent, killing is more difficult than not killing. The battle between the ghost cultivator and the demon was very fierce. It was still difficult to decide who would win or lose. In the end, although Prince Xiaofeng was still shouting, he fell to the ground first, while the Emperor Tree could stand steady. Although his body was covered with scars, his leaves and branches fell all over the floor, and he was almost bald, but at least he could still stand. His body's ability to withstand injuries was stronger than that of Prince Feng, so he won, while Prince Feng passed out and was dragged out of the venue. Princess Yuking glanced at the Emperor Tree, and she couldn't help but smile. If her next opponent was the Emperor Tree, she would easily enter the final battle. Prince Feng was thrown to the edge of the Immortal Observatory. Although he was not dead, no one cared about him. In his current state, Wu Yu only needed to make one move to kill him. The third battle will begin soon. The first 2 battles were much more intense than expected, so the people behind would be even more nervous, especially the other 3. One of them would encounter Wu Yu. This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The third game. Wang Zhixun was very nervous and activated the magic circle again. He couldn't control it in front of everyone. After all, No one could be offended. The list is out. Wu Yu took a look and found that he was really lucky. In the third battle, Feng Jianqing fights against King Gu Yunci. So his opponent in the first battle turned out to be the young prince. He smiled, maybe God was helping him. Feng Jianqing and King Gu Yunci are also very powerful. One is a genius swordsman of eternal kendo, and the other is a super genius of Izumo Kingdom. This result made the seven of them very desperate. They originally thought that except for the little prince, the other six of them would definitely encounter Wu Yu in the first battle and kill him, but Wu Yu's opponent was Little Prince. And the six of them had gone through battles in front of them, and all of them were dying. Even the winner, Princess Yuking, who was in the best condition, had lost a lot of strength. If Wu Yu easily defeats the young prince and reaches the semi-finals, what happens next is simply unimaginable. They never expected that such a situation would happen, but they were already riding a tiger. The seven of them looked at each other, and they all saw the depression in each other's eyes. However, it seems that they can only bite the bullet now. At worst, they will definitely kill Wu Yu in the next round. At that time, it may involve distributing treasures, which will be a bit troublesome, but as long as Wu Yu dies, it shouldn't be a big problem. At least in their eyes, Wu Yu was not qualified to own a treasure. Now there are 4 people who have consumed a lot, but King Gu Yunci and Feng Jianqing are still going all out, but the problem is that they cannot give in to each other at this time. At this juncture, there is not so much time for them to discuss secretly. Hurry up, you two. I can't wait. Wu Yu couldn't help but laugh. He was really lucky. In fact, he thought that no matter who the opponent was, he would kill them, and then take advantage of their huge consumption to fight everyone alone. What I said before was all to make them kill each other, and then kill one more person myself. Now, their goal of killing each other was achieved, and it would be easy for them to kill one of them if the opponent was the young prince. Little Prince, Wu Yu knew that if he followed him back to the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, he would be his biggest enemy. At least, he would not let himself live. Unfortunately, Wu Yu has now become his nightmare. King Gu Yunci and Feng Jianqing could only fight. They were not very fierce at the beginning. They might be fighting while thinking of a solution. The little prince fights against Wu Yu. No matter how you say it, he will be exhausted. Then we will try to let everyone recover for a while. When everyone recovers, I, the Emperor Tree, and the winner among you will always be able to kill Wu Yu. No matter who kills Wu Yu, he will enter the decisive battle directly, and the other 2 will determine a winner and enter the decisive battle. The loser will be third, and the first and second will be determined in the end. This is the countermeasure that Princess Yuking came up with. No problem. Anyway, we didn't agree on how long to rest for a round of battle at the beginning. Then we will rest until we regain our full strength. In this way, King Gu Yunci and Feng Jianqing can fight normally. The battle between them is very similar to that of Emperor Shu and Prince Feng. Their strength is very balanced and they are equally matched. This is why they fight very well. Tragic. Both sides had their own victory or defeat. In the end, the situation was similar to that of the previous group. Both of them were seriously injured. Among them, Feng Jianqing's swordsmanship was more lethal than Izumo's ghost cultivation technique. Therefore, the person who entered the top 4 was Feng Jianqing. The final top 4 were decided between Wu Yu and the little prince. In the previous 3 battles, among the 6 people, King Gu Yunci and Prince Feng were all seriously injured and fell into coma. The 8-winged golden roc, Emperor Tree, and Feng Jianqing were all dying. Only Princess Yuking was better. This situation is really beneficial to Wu Yu. However, this was all caused by themselves. It was their greed, arrogance, cold-bloodedness, ignorance, and impulsiveness that led to their current ending. And Wu Yu, at this time, stood on the final battlefield with the little prince. When the little prince saw Wu Yu's eyes at this time, he felt vaguely uneasy. He looked back at the others and then saw Wu Yu, who was now intact. An idea suddenly occurred to him. Wu Yu, don't you want to kill all of us? The thought made his skin stand on end. It's impossible. How could he, a humble person, have such a bold idea? It's impossible. However, he took another look. Still the same look, cold and silent. The little prince fell into deep fear. It won't be like this, he was still hypnotizing himself, because he still felt that it was impossible. Until Wu Yu took out the spiritual weapon and suddenly came to kill, the black and white impermanence appeared on his left and right at the same time. And Wu Yu had already promised not to use puppets. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 663. Chapter 656. What is madness? When the little prince saw the emergence of black and white, the most fearful thought in his heart immediately became a reality. When he killed the 9-star Snow Chi before, he could rush there vaguely. But now, he wants to kill himself. With the appearance of black and white impermanence, it is basically certain that Wu Yu has already decided on this crazy murderous intention. If he kills himself, he will definitely kill everyone. How could he have such a crazy idea? To be honest, the little prince was really frightened. However, he didn't have much time to react. Even though he was breaking out in a cold sweat at this moment, he still ran away as fast as possible towards Princess Yukin and the others, shouting loudly, Wu Yu wants to kill me. He wants to kill everyone, all of us. Help me. Princess Yukin and the others were not stupid. Wu Yu broke the agreement for the first time he went into battle and had no hesitation. He made it clear that he wanted to kill people and break the rules. Then, realizing the current situation of the 6 of them. When I saw Wu Yu rushing to kill again, he had a prepared and indifferent look in his eyes. Can't help but feel horrified. But the problem is, they don't have much time to regret. The little prince fled in panic, not daring to fight. Maybe he could escape the impermanence of black and white, but he couldn't escape Wu Yu, especially Wu Yu after using the divine movement technique plus the magic of heaven and earth. At this time, Wu Yu's body suddenly shrank, and with the divine movement technique, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. The prince's eyes reached behind him and intercepted him. Although he was small and not very powerful, he was still enough to intercept the little prince. He turned back and struck the little prince on the chest with his stick, pulling back the embarrassment-escaping little prince. He was instantly surrounded by black and white impermanence. That stick scared the little prince out of his wits, and when he thought of the ending of Juxing Sweji, it was even more horrifying. He quickly changed his words and said, Wu Yu, don't kill me. I am willing to help you. We are all from the Yanhuang ancient kingdom, let's kill them all. They all work together and get blood. After we get out, my father can even be your adoptive father and give you a distinguished status. He said a lot in one breath, and indeed most of them were temptations. For example, the last sentence made the prince of the eastern region his adoptive father. However, Wu Yu is not a fool. With all the things he has on him, such as the floating life tower, the young prince knows that if he deals with the prince of the eastern region again, he is simply seeking death. Therefore, when he had to reveal the floating life tower to save his life, he actually had no choice. In his hand, the spiritual Taoist weapon 10,000 dragon stick was cold and ruthless, setting off a gust of wind, whizzing in. 10,000 dragons on it took off, the dragons roared, tearing apart the space, and causing bursts of air explosion sounds. The black and white Vuchain who had surrounded the little prince before had already taken action first. They each took action and used magic circles to trap the little prince. Among them, the black and white Vuchang's soul hook had already wrapped around his body. Like a nightmare. Compared with Wu Yu and the others, the young prince was indeed a bit weak. He was unable to do anything when surrounded by the three. Wu Yu. Have you thought about it? As long as my father, before he could finish his words, the hook had already been deeply inserted into his flesh and blood, and the white Vuchang's weeping stick was also directly hit on the back of his head. On top, Wu Yu struck him directly on the forehead with a swift and fierce blow. This is not like a battle between immortals, but more like a duel between mortal martial arts. Wu Yu's movements and fighting methods are all like those of a mortal martial artist. But precisely because of this, everyone present was even more worried. There were sticks in front and behind, and the little prince screamed, and his voice suddenly stopped. Under the attack of Wu Yu and the other three, he returned directly to the west. Little prince, die. Got another one. When they besieged him, Wu Yu had already sentenced them to death. So now there is only relief after success. Then, the 6 injured people were left in his eyes, 2 of them were unconscious, and the last one was Wang Zhigzun. Wang Zhigzun originally thought he could get out, but now that he saw Wu Yu killing people, he was completely shocked. He hid in the corner, eyes wide open, unable to say a word, and even his jaw was trembling. Wang Zhigzun was directly ignored by Wu Yu. Wu Yu, are you crazy? Princess Yuking was the least injured. At this time, she reluctantly stood up and looked at Wu Yu with a serious look. Wu Yu smiled faintly, and swept towards them with black and white impermanence, while saying, "The weak prey on the strong, I am very normal." Feng Jianqing gritted his teeth and said, "You mean, you want to kill us? Just because of you?" Wu Yu's smile remained unchanged, his voice became much thicker, and he said, "You're right. I'm going to kill you. Who let you see so many treasures in me? From the beginning, it was destined that you would die or I would live. You're really crazy." They all looked gloomy and frightened. To them, Wu Yu was rebellious and intolerable. Their hearts exploded with anger. If he hadn't been injured, he would have killed him long ago. "Delay time, give us time to recover, and then kill him," the 8-winged golden roc secretly said urgently to the others. Obviously, at this point, there is only life and death, no other choice. However, Wu Yu was not stupid. How could he let them recover after finally waiting for them to get injured? So at this time, it's just a matter of disagreement. After he said a few words to divert his attention, he immediately used the law of heaven and earth again. His body shrank to the smallest size, but his speed became faster. Combined with the divine movement technique, he almost disappeared at this moment. At the same time, Wu Yu quickly took out the clones in the fusion tower. Thousands of people dispersed and crowded on the immortal viewing platform. They were everywhere for a while. The real Wu Yu had already arrived at the side of Prince Feng and King Guo Yunzi at the fastest speed. This chapter has not ended yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The 2 of them were in a coma and had basically no fighting power, so they were the easiest to kill. They, Princess Yuxiang and the others also realized Wu Yu's purpose. However, it was too late. Wu Yu was everywhere at this time. They had no choice but to take action and use Taoist magic to protect Prince Feng and King Guo Yunzi first. They were still slow. Wu Yu was faster. The 2 were already dying and unconscious. After Wu Yu passed by, he hit them with 2 consecutive sticks and sent them to the west. "Prince Feng, King Guo Yunzi, die." These 2 ghost cultivators never thought that they would die in battle here. Moreover, they were still unconscious. Of course, this was good for them, so they didn't have to be angry to death. After dealing with the 2 of them, there were only 4 people left on the other side. 8 super geniuses, successors of top forces, 4 of them died in Wu Yu's hands in the blink of an eye. This is absolutely crazy. Whoosh. The clones are no longer needed, Wu Yu will take them all back, and face Princess Yuyan and the others again. The four of them have gathered together at this time. When they saw the bodies of Prince Feng and King Gu Yunxi, and then saw Wu Yu with a calm look in his eyes, it is estimated that their worldviews were completely shattered. They absolutely did not expect that Wu Yu would do such a crazy thing. Why? Wu Yu, why? Seeing these people who are similar to herself die, even Princess Yuyan was panicked at this time, staring at Wu Yu with wide eyes, unbelievable. At this moment, Wu Yu was like the god of death. No reason, you know better than me, these things I got, you know, but I don't have your background. After I get out, I have only one way to die, and it will also affect my relatives and friends. Killing is a helpless act, you all know, why ask more? Just like at the beginning, you were too lazy to wait for me to take out the treasure, you wanted to kill me directly and take these treasures away. Wu Yu had already figured out these things, so at this time, no matter what the other party said, it would not be possible to shake his will. All these can be discussed, Princess Yuyan should still be thinking about delaying time at this time. No discussion, I have killed so many people, unless, you help me, we kill this one together? After your hands are stained with blood, you can't leak the news of my killing, right? Wu Yu smiled. Princess Yuyan frowned. Hearing this, the other three people immediately moved away from her. People's hearts are separated by their stomachs. How could they know that Princess Yuyan would not join forces with Wu Yu? After all, Wu Yu at this time, there are black and white impermanents around him, which is a great threat to them. They quickly looked for the elixir on their bodies, hoping to restore their fighting power. Princess Yuxian knew very well that if she chose this way, Wu Yu would definitely kill her in the end. So, she hurriedly said, don't believe him, even if I help him, he will kill me in the end. Three of you, joining forces is our only chance. The other three nodded, but they were still a little wary of her in their hearts. For Wu Yu, this was enough. In fact, he has a great chance of winning now. Now, except for Princess Yuxian, everyone is seriously injured. At this time, Wu Yu not only used the immortal ape transformation, but also used the law of heaven and earth when he quickly approached them. For a while, he turned into a giant and stood in front of everyone. Black and white impermanents, like ghosts, stood on his left and right. He pointed at two people, Princess Yuxian and Feng Jianqing. They are the two with the strongest fighting power here, and Feng Jianqing is slightly better than Tian Huangshu. Black and white impermanents instantly killed the two people. Of course, they just need to entangle their opponents. Wu Yu had to deal with the Emperor Tree and the eight-winged golden pen, two demons. When his sight shifted to the two men, they were immediately horrified. The Emperor Tree said, Wu Yu, you have committed a huge mistake. If you don't repent, you know how miserable your end will be. Here, as long as one person can get out, you will definitely be unable to live or die. You don't know how heavy a sin you have committed at this moment. The eight-winged golden pen also said, it's time to turn back. Stopping now can at least reduce the pain. Wu Yu responded to them, sorry, except for me, no one of you can go out today. Sorry, I owe another chapter today. A total of 2 chapters are owed. I will pay it back after the 8th. The madman is currently out of town. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 664. At this moment, Wu Yu was so domineering and majestic. These top geniuses in the world of Yamafa were completely trampled under his feet in this deserted and closed world. The more the eight-winged golden pen and the others thought about how they treated Wu Yu before, the more they regretted it. But Wu Yu was not afraid of anything now, and because of this, they were scared and sweated on their backs. In a panic, they just wanted to scare Wu Yu with words, but when they were nervous, even these two demons with top bloodlines, no less than Zhu Ying, could not speak clearly. They couldn't even speak well, let alone threaten Wu Yu. The black and white impermanence separated, with the white impermanence entangled Princess Yuxian, and the black impermanence intercepted Feng Jianqing. These two puppets were not afraid of death, and once they made a move, Princess Yuxian and the others had no way to do anything. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow circled M. Especially the severely injured Feng Jianqing, who was completely suppressed by He Vuchang at this time. Wu Yu got the opportunity to deal with these two demons alone. Without saying anything more, he suddenly moved, and the one dancing in his hand was the most feared upper spiritual weapon. The more he used it, the more handy it was, and the more fierce the power of this one long stick would burst out. Although it was not as powerful as the collapse of the sky and the crack of the earth when it was swung, at least all the breadth and space within the Wangxiantai were being moved with the change of its trajectory, oppressing Wu Yu's opponents so that they could hardly breathe. Wu Yu was determined to kill, and the two demons saw that there was no hope at all, and they decided to join forces. Among them, the emperor tree rose from the ground and turned into a huge golden ancient tree on the side of the Wangxian terrace. This ancient tree was thick and solid. If it were not for the Wangxian terrace, the roots like golden claws would probably be buried in the ground. On the trunk, there were many hard branches, each of which was comparable to a Taoist weapon and had great lethality. The emperor tree was originally lush with branches and leaves, but because of the battle with the ghost cultivators, it consumed a lot of energy. Now the branches and leaves are withered, and the dazzling golden color on its body has also faded a lot. Above the emperor tree, there is a golden rock with 8 golden wings flying in the sky. The golden rock, which was originally mighty and domineering and could fly thousands of miles, is now trapped in this small place, and is covered in blood. Princess Yuxian's icy and cold Taoist magic power is still rotating in her body, destroying her body, and Princess Yuxian is restrained by Bai Vuchang at this time, and she doesn't even have time to retract these powers. The two join forces. They were about to attack, but Wu Yu was faster. His magical power of the law of heaven and earth, when used flexibly, was simply shocking. For example, after he became smaller, his speed was extremely fast. At this time, the 8-winged golden peng and the emperor tree did not know their positions for a short time, until Wu Yu suddenly appeared on the 8-winged golden peng. I found him. When the 8-winged golden peng found Wu Yu changed into the law of heaven and earth, and his body was already more than 3 feet tall. This 3-foot-tall body instantly fell on the back of the 8-winged golden peng in flight. The 8-winged golden peng's 8 wings were furiously rolled, and its speed was already very fast. Wu Yu caught up with him and his speed was even faster. Between life and death, the 8-winged golden peng's brain was filled with blood and was very irritable. Storm Golden Feather. He was seriously injured now and must need to recover. It was already very good that he could barely use his best magical power at this juncture. This magical power had caused Princess Yuxin to suffer before. It was seen that the feathers on its golden wings did not seem to decrease, but in an instant, tens of millions of golden feathers flew up. The feathers were as sharp as swords, densely packed, covering the entire sky, surrounding Wu Yu in the middle, and then a sharp whistle pierced the air, shining with dazzling golden light, swarming towards Wu Yu. It was simply tens of millions of blades, piercing through in an instant, thousands of troops. At this juncture, probably all had to be annihilated. Die, the 8-winged golden peng fought hard and counterattacked before dying, still having a lot of confidence in himself. Once a magical power, it killed hundreds of thousands of demons in the sea, which was the storm golden feather. After that moment, the whole sea was bloody. Dang dang dang. When the storm golden feathers hit Wu Yu danced the upper spirit Dao weapon tightly. Even though there were golden blades all around, under the absolute control of the upper spirit Dao weapon, the storm golden feathers of such a degree could not break through Wu Yu's 10,000 dragon stick. For a moment, it seemed as if a group of dragons were entangled in its body. No matter how violent the storm golden feathers were, they could not rush in within a short time. Tear. Wu Yu tore a passage in the storm golden feathers and landed directly on the back of the eight-winged golden peng. Those storm golden feathers also chased after him. Sorry, you are too seriously injured, so this magical power is so weak. When Wu Yu's cold words reached the ears of the eight-winged golden peng, in the sky, Wu Yu's 10,000 dragon stick gathered several kinds of domineering power, tore the air, and hit one of the wings of the eight-winged golden peng. Crack! Under such a huge force, the bones of that wing were completely shattered, and the whole wing softened instantly, completely useless, and useless. That shrill bird cry was enough to chill the hearts of the other 3 or 4 people. But it didn't stop yet. The eight-winged golden peng fled madly, chasing Wu Yu with its storm golden feathers, but Wu Yu resisted while sticking to his back, leaving him helpless. It is true that his storm golden feathers pierced Wu Yu, but the key was that they could only pierce his flesh and blood and could not penetrate. Wu Yu shook it lightly, and these feathers turned into powder. Bang bang bang. The 8 wings were broken in Wu Yu's hands one after another, and the screams of the 8-winged golden roc became more and more thought. That day the emperor tree wanted to help, but for a moment he didn't know where to attack because Wu Yu was completely hidden behind it. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. In the end, the 8-winged golden roc begged for mercy and threatened at the same time. He couldn't form a unity and screamed, but he was shattered by Wu Yu's rough stick and went to the west. In fact, this chaotic battle lasted only a moment. After the battle just now, the 8-winged golden roc fought so hard to get the treasure that he only had half a life left from the beginning. Wu Yu was already better than him. Amazing, it's not difficult to take care of this half-life. Don't blame me. If you want to blame me, just blame you for forcing me to fight to the death with you. When the huge corpse of the 8-winged golden roc suddenly landed on the Wangxian platform, Wu Yu had already transformed into a golden light and headed towards the emperor tree. The emperor tree was scared to death. To be honest, he couldn't help at all just now. Wu Yu was very cunning and stayed behind the 8-winged golden roc. This is the advantage of his physical strength. Once he gets up close, he will be much scarier than other opponents. Of course, if he attacks from a distance, Wu Yu has no advantage. Yu Chong. Save me, Emperor Shu shouted loudly, his voice already trembling. However, he had no way to escape from Wang Xiantai, and even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't defeat Wu Yu. I was completely panicked. Those thick branches, comparable to Taoist weapons, were all his weapons. At this time, they were densely packed and whipping towards Wu Yu, blocking all of Wu Yu's forward routes. He wanted Princess Xuanhuan to save his life, but Wu Yu knew very well that Bai Vuchain was still very good, and Princess Xuanhuan had no way of intervening in this matter. Seeing so many rough branches coming at them, his body suddenly changed to the smallest size. Holding the 10,000 dragon staff, he used the magic technique. No matter how fast these golden branches were, they couldn't be faster than Wu Yu at this time. Wu Yu, while dodging and moving forward, he rushed in and was stuck to the trunk of the emperor tree in the blink of an eye. At this time, he had regained his 3-foot-long figure, and he no longer looked like an ant next to the emperor tree. One long stick, raised high, struck with lightning speed. Rebirth rain and dew, the emperor tree was in a panic, fighting for serious injuries and exhaustion. At this time, it had to use its life-saving magical power. I saw golden particles suddenly exploded from its branches, leaves, and trunks, and appeared in the emperor tree in an instant. On the top of his head, the golden ones split open like seeds and turned into a large number of golden raindrops, falling down. For a moment, a golden downpour was created around the emperor tree. Those raindrops fell down and moistened his body. Above, what can be seen is that the injured parts, those branches and leaves, are rapidly recovering and reborn. I sacrificed my longevity in exchange for a new life, Wu Yu, I will definitely take your life in this life." That day, the emperor tree couldn't wait for Yukong to come, and roared angrily, the sound shaking the walls of Wangxiantai. He didn't expect that he could lose his longevity in exchange for recovery. However, in fact, he should have used it long ago. If he had recovered from the beginning, he would have had the 8-winged golden roc as a helper. Now, Wu Yu's only opponent is him, so he not afraid at all. At this time, it is the time when the emperor tree is reborn quickly, from an old tree to a new tree. At this time, without saying anything, Wu Yu used the violence technique, and his arms instantly became stronger. This in itself was the strongest physical state of Fa Tian Xiang Di. Coupled with the violence technique, at least the physical strength suddenly increased by 6 times. This kind of explosion was unprecedented. As Wu Yu roared, the stick roared and shook the trunk of the emperor tree. The destructive power directly smashed the recovering emperor tree demon in half. Click. With a crisp sound, the guards separated, and the crown of the emperor tree fell from the sky, crashing onto the Wangxian terrace. The lower part was almost completely destroyed. Such an injury could not be recovered even by the rebirth rain and dew. In addition, Wu Yu smashed it again, whether it was a branch or a leaf, in the destruction of a golden figure, it was quickly torn and splashed all over the ground. This was just like Wu Yu was cutting down a tree, not bloody at all. Click, click, click. At first, the emperor tree screamed in pain and panic, and finally the sound became smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Emperor tree, die in battle. The emperor tree still had a long life. After killing him, Wu Yu was a little tired. However, at this time, only Princess Yuqing and Feng Jianqing were left. He had completely gained the upper hand and there was no need to be afraid at all. The situation has long been in Wu Yu's hands. At this time, he was already the king of Wangxian Terrace. And the death of these last 2 people is not far away. It's unlikely, there could be an accident. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 665. After finishing, Wu Yu took the relics of the 8-winged golden pen and the emperor tree into his own pocket. If cultivation is plundering, then no one is wrong here on the immortal watching platform, and everyone is moving forward for the end of cultivation. The game of heaven and earth is to plunder and fight. The law of the jungle is the same in the most primitive jungle or in the battlefield of the cultivators. When Wu Yu killed people calmly, he killed 6 people in a row when he faced the 2 at last. With such murderous intent, a glance could make Princess Yuyan and Feng Jianqing's eyelids jump. He shook the 10,000 dragon stick and faced Princess Yuyan and Feng Jianqing. Feng Jianqing was already seriously injured. Even if his swordsmanship was sharp, he had no way to deal with He Vuchang at this time. He was completely panting and struggling in He Vuchang's hands. His face was pale, but his eyes were particularly sharp. The swordsmanship in his hands had long surpassed the peak of Shushan Xianmen. But even so, facing Wu Yu who killed 6 people in a row, he was completely suppressed by Wu Yu in terms of eyes and momentum. Princess Yuxiang was okay. She was the least injured, so when Wu Yu quickly killed the 8-winged golden pen and the emperor tree, she almost destroyed Bai Vuchang. Fortunately, Bai Vuchang was not afraid of death, so he still helped Wu Yu intercept this opponent before he was almost broken. Wu Yu waved his hand, and the injured Bai Vuchang returned to the Fusion Tower. Princess Yuxiang was liberated. She did not come to deal with Wu Yu directly, because even she was afraid at this time. Her eyes did not dare to look Wu Yu in the eye. In addition to her, there was Wang Zhigzun. Wang Zhigzun had been scared and hid in the corner. His face was as white as paper. For him, Wu Yu was a nightmare now. He could only twitch constantly and even foamed at the mouth in fear. Because he knew very well that he had seen so much, Wu Yu would never let him go. You seeing, joining forces is the last chance. He is also exhausted. Help me kill this puppet. On the other side, Feng Jianqing gritted his teeth and stared at Wu Yu with bloodshot eyes. Princess Yuxing must be in a complicated mood. She stared at Wu Yu and the corpse under his feet. 6 people, plus the eternal shark, 7. Among the 10 top geniuses who came to the ancient immortal road this time, 7 have died in Wu Yu's hands. The death of Emperor Li was also related to Wu Yu. Now only she and Feng Jianqing are left. Who would have thought that Wu Yu, who was insignificant when he just came in, would become such a nightmare at this time? What's more terrifying is that he has the ability to make everyone unaware that he has committed such a crime. If what happened here is known to people outside, it will be enough to cause a sensation for thousands of years. This is a shocking massacre. Enough to be recorded in the history of the world of Yamafu. Princess Yuyan certainly knew how serious this matter was, and she knew even more how close death was to her. However, when she saw Wu Yu lightly packing up the belongings of Tian Huangshu and the others, a nightmare-like fear arose in her heart. Yuyan, even Feng Jianqing's sharp reminder did not react to her. Wu Yu did not give her any chance, or rather, he did not give Feng Jianqing any chance. He let the intact Heva Chaim change his opponent in an instant and intercept Princess Yuyan, while he raised the one long stick and killed Feng Jianqing directly. He was the second to last person. Wu Yu naturally did not take Wang's Higzun seriously. Feng Jianqing could not help but be afraid of being targeted by Wu Yu, and he swallowed deeply. At this time, Princess Yuyan had to take action, because if she continued to be dazed, Heva Chaim could kill her. However, in her current state of restlessness, let alone helping Feng Jianqing, she couldn't even protect herself by fighting back on the spot. A princess of the Beiming Empire was frightened into the state by this beast. Feng Jianqing was proud and naturally looked down on Princess Yuqian. He stared at Wu Yu, who was coming up with a bloody look in his eyes, and said, "I admire you. But you used this shameful method to deceive us to kill each other. I also look down on you for being so vicious and cunning. If you have the guts, wait until I recover a little, and then I will fight you in a fair fight to decide the winner." Wu Yu shook his head and said, "Sorry, I don't need to prove to you that I can defeat you openly." "Coward," Feng Jianqing spitted and said coldly, taking advantage of others' misfortune, "even if you can kill me, I still look down on you. You are born in a lowly family, have no one to rely on, and can only use these insidious methods. What kind of man are you? If you have an upright heart, you must be upright. You are not worthy of your own Dao. Even if you kill us today, you who dare not fight head-on will stop at the realm of Dao and will never improve at all. Because you have already taken the crooked path." Wu Yu smiled and said, "Everyone's Dao is different, so don't use yours to confuse mine. My current Dao is to send you to hell." After saying this, Wu Yu still had this attitude. Feng Jianqing was furious and said, "The sinister and cunning people will be punished by heaven. Even if you succeed today, you must pay the price in the future. I am the eternal sword Dao, with a straight mind and body, and I would rather die than be afraid of you. If the master and elders know the cause of my death in the future, they will definitely hold the sword to flatten your Dongsheng Shenzhou and let the people be buried with you. Then, let them go." Feng Jianqing could not shake Wu Yu. He knew very well what his Dao was. It was never what he called upright, practicing, fighting, and there were not so many superior qualities. Even Feng Jianqing himself could not do it, let alone ask others. At this time, although Wu Yu had already used violent techniques and was a little tired, he was confident of killing Feng Jianqing. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Feng Jianqing, after saying so much, was just planning a way to deal with Wu Yu, or to buy time for Princess Yuchang, but in fact Princess Yuchang was confused at this time, and he could only rely on himself. When Wu Yu took action, he had also finished planning. Feng Jianqing was holding a Taoist longsword in his hand. The quality was quite high, close to that of the Shangling Taoist weapon. The long sword was like a green jade, with a thorn in the center of the blade. A bloodline, I don't know whose blood it is, maybe it's the forger's. At this time, the bloodline flows into Feng Jianqing's body. The bloodline disappears, but Feng Jianqing looks crazy. The sword of eternal killing. His swordsmanship is the best Wu Yu has ever seen. In addition, he is a young genius with a very deep understanding. When a sword strikes, it seems slow and not very fast, but it is difficult to resist. This sword has incredible pressure, but Feng Jianqing fights to the death. All his hopes are on this sword. Kill. This sword is made for killing. As soon as the sword came out and sealed its throat, killing intent instantly enveloped the whole body. An invisible shock struck in the sword and shot out from Feng Jianqing's blood-red eyes. Die. Maybe Feng Jianqing was also confident that he could kill Wu Yu with this sword. The sword has strong power, and it is so powerful that it is sure to kill with one strike. Feng Jianqing's true strength, if it were at its peak, was not much different from Wu Yu's, and his swordsmanship almost showed his peak power. For a time, Wu Yu was completely suppressed. Within a short period of time, Wu Yu felt the pressure. This kind of opponent's counterattack was not easy. The murderous intention endured in a terrible spirit. Feng Jianqing's eyes were like a bloody sea of swords. However, Wu Yu was fearless. Soul refining, his fiery eyes had not been used for a long time. The opponent's eyes were oppressive, and Wu Yu was also oppressive. His oppression penetrated deeply into the opponent's soul and calcined it. Although it was only for a moment, Feng Jianqing was affected no matter what, and the power and accuracy of the sword were not as good as at the beginning. The next step Wu Yu took was to release Bai Vuqian, right in front of him. Then, the body quickly shrank in accordance with the laws of heaven and earth. This was the 3 reactions he had made in the shortest possible time. When that sword actually only lasted a moment. It first penetrated Bai Vuqian. At this time, Wu Yu was shrinking his body. The sword was originally aimed at his throat. Due to the impact and obstruction of soul refining and Bai Vuqian, Wu Yu's body became smaller and passed over the top of Wu Yu's head, almost piercing Wu Yu's head. It's terrible, Wu Yu was almost killed by him. This is indeed shocking. However, Wu Yu only looked at the result, and now the result was that he was not dead, and that was enough. Feng Jianqing struck out with all his strength without concentrating on himself. And his next move was behind Feng Jianqing's sword. The opponent did not assassinate him, but Wu Yu's 10,000 dragon stick actually hit the opponent's head. Bang! Feng Jianqing fell to the ground on the spot. The one long stick was very heavy. When it flipped over on the ground and turned his face to the sky, his eyes were empty. Although his eyes were wide open and he might not be willing to do so, there was no doubt that he had died in the battle and became Wu Yu's beheader. The 8th super genius. Of course, that includes the immortal shark. No matter how unwilling Feng Jianqing was, it was the end at this time. Wu Yu used the 10,000 dragon stick to pick up the sword in his hand. It was indeed unfair. He was severely injured and could not recover. However, Wu Yu was not a saint who was willing to fight him openly. When Wang Zhixun saw people dying again, only Princess Yuqing was the only one in the end. He was so frightened that he screamed again and again, and his eyes were so wide open that he almost fell off. Wu Yu swung it just in time, allowing Feng Jianqing's sword to penetrate Wang Zhixun. He should have died a long time ago. Wu Yu would not let the shocking rumors have a chance to spread. Wang Zhixun's face at the beginning destined that he would not be able to escape this disaster. In the end, only Princess Yuqing remained. She was still confused and entangled with He Vuqian. Maybe Feng Jianqing's death was expected by her. However, she was pretty powerful and wasn't seriously injured, so He Vuqian couldn't withstand her attack, and it didn't take long before he was almost scrapped. And Wu Yu himself, after taking consecutive shots, is not in peak condition now. He called He Vuchang back. He felt a little numb when he saw the corpses on the ground. Finally, there was Princess Yuking. This person had even recruited him at the beginning. Who would have thought that Wu Yu would be like this now, standing face to face with her? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 666. The Wangxian terrace was full of corpses, and only Princess Yuxian was left. When Wu Yu recalled He Vuchang, Princess Yuxian stared at him in a daze, but did not attack him. The two looked at each other here, and the momentum and majesty between the two sides had already changed, and there was a world of difference from before. When the geniuses of the Xiaoxian dynasty in the Yanfu world died one by one at Wu Yu's hands, she was the only one left. The geniuses of the same generation who were once familiar and feared by her now all died with their eyes open. Even Feng Jianqing of the Eternal Sword Dao died so heroically. It is hard to imagine what kind of shock the last remaining Princess Yuxian would feel. Of course, Wu Yu could not, because she was the only beauty, and now she looked even more pitiful and charming. That sad and confused beautiful face made me feel pity, so he would spare her life. There was only one opponent left, and even Wang Zhigzun would not get in the way, so Wu Yu was not in a hurry at all. He had already completed the most difficult step, and the next step was just a finale where the outcome was already determined. However, Wu Yu wanted to win more confidently, so he planned to keep Princess Yuxing alive for a few more days. After all, her injuries were not serious, while Wu Yu himself and the two puppets, Black and White Impermanence, had some damage. He entered the floating life tower, summoned the Blood and Lightning God General, threw the floating life tower out of the Wangxian terrace, and plunged it into the mud outside again. During the whole process, it seemed that he didn't say much to Princess Yuxing, but Princess Yuxing would never think that Wu Yu would bypass her. Once this battle started, it would never end. Leaving anyone behind would be a fatal disaster. Give her a few days, Princess Yuxing will surely be able to think clearly about her last chance to survive, and I believe that after a few days, she will be fully prepared. However, Wu Yu's puppets and himself were recovering, especially after getting the items carried by so many people. The amount of money gathered was quite large. After just a few glances, Wu Yu knew that he would not have to worry about the time of elixirs for a long time. You give her a few more years, aren't you afraid that she will come up with a way to kill you in these few days? Ming Long asked. Wu Yu said, I may not be stronger than her, but with the Black and White Impermanence, I have killed the other 7, how can I not deal with her? Especially after a few days, I recovered to my prime state, and it was a siege directly. In the fusion tower, Wu Yu quickly recovered to his prime state, full of energy, and it was estimated that he would not be far from condensing his soul. The repair of the two puppets was the business of the fusion tower, and Wu Yu could not intervene, but it did not take much time, and the Black and White Impermanence also recovered to a perfect state, and in the fusion tower, Wu Yu had twice the time of Princess Yuqian. Wu Yu also summoned the puppet equivalent to the 5th level of the Yuan Shen Waxing realm, named 8-Armed God General. The 8-Armed God General has a huge body, 8 arms, a huge head, and a fierce look, looking like an evil dragon. Black and White Impermanence, 8-Armed God General, and Wu Yu himself, the 4 came out of the fusion tower, passed through the barrier of the Wangxian Terrace, and landed on the Wangxian Terrace again. Although a few days have passed, the Wangxian Terrace has not changed at all. There are corpses everywhere, bloody and cruel, and a bloody smell condenses on the Wangxian Terrace. In the corner of the Wangxian Terrace, Princess Yuxing, who was once high above, now hugged her legs and sat on the Wangxian Terrace, curled up. When she noticed Wu Yu's reappearance, perhaps for her, death had come, so she trembled and stood up. She was wearing a black robe, and her whole body was cold and chilly. Her dark eyes were like a cold pond, and her lips were bright red. Her appearance was cold and charming. She was respected as the princess of the Beiming Empire. She had been above millions of people since she was a child. People who were used to controlling everything were of course more outstanding in temperament. Although Wu Yu was also a princess, there was a world of difference between a mortal princess and a princess of the Xiaoxian Empire. She seemed to have adjusted her heart, so when Wu Yu appeared, she did not hesitate at all, and her Taoist magic power for fighting was ready. Maybe everyone else had begged for mercy, but it didn't work. She was the last one, and Wu Yu had already shown his coldness and determination, so Princess Yuyan seemed to have given up begging Wu Yu for mercy. It seemed that she had some confidence and wanted to fight Wu Yu to the death. "Do you think you can survive?" Wu Yu said lightly. "I will take you with me even if I die," Princess Yuyan said coldly. Wu Yu was relieved. He didn't want to see these high-ranking people crying and begging for mercy in front of him. He would rather fight openly and let his strength speak for itself. He would not feel guilty about bullying the weak. The final showdown. Whoosh! The two of them moved almost at the same time, gathered together, and fought. Of course, it was 4-1, and Wu Yu still had 3 puppets on his side. In fact, Princess Yuyan and the others were not weak, but they were calculated by Wu Yu before. When Princess Yuyan was at her peak, she was not easy to deal with, even with the black and white impermanence. Ice crystal transformation in the underworld sea. In the first battle, Princess Yuyan used her great magical power. Wu Yu had seen this magical power when she fought against the 8-winged golden peng. In fact, Princess Yuyan had already tried her best at that time. Wu Yu had anticipated all her Taoist magical powers. Under the surging cold current, Princess Yuking's body suddenly turned into black ice crystals. Her whole body was like an ice crystal statue, without any expression, indifferent and cold. In fact, under such magical power, she had a very top level. Due to her resistance, even if Wu Yu breaks part of her body, those shattered ice crystals will come back immediately, making her almost half immortal. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. At the same time, the cold ice crystals emitted pitch-black cold air, causing the temperature in Wangxiande to drop to an unprecedented level. The bodies of other people were frozen by the black ice in a short period of time. Turned into ice sculptures one by one, and Wu Yu's 3 puppets were all moving violently at this time, otherwise they would also be frozen. As for Wu Yu himself, his indestructible body was extremely hot. The cold air that hit his face could only be burned away by Wu Yu's fiery body. Beside Wu Yu, the ice on the immortal terrace under his feet was also melting. Xianbing Realm Fire. Princess Yuking, who has the body of the underworld ice crystal, continues to perform Taoist magic in the distance to prevent Wu Yu from approaching her. Now she changes the Taoist seals with her hands, the Taoist magic takes shape, opens her small red mouth, and spits out in an uproar, and there is a surge. The black flames, like the waves of the sea, rushed towards my face, and it seemed that the entire Wangxian terrace could not dodge it. Perhaps, Princess Yuking knew that Wu Yu could not get close to her, so at this time, she desperately attacked from a distance to prevent Wu Yu from getting close. This was the best escape method, she had concluded. It seems that I underestimated her desire to live. Wu Yu had seen her perform the technique Xianbing Realm Fire. Although it was a flame, when it was burned, no matter what it was, it would be quickly frozen by the fatal cold. If Wu Yu himself was burned by the black fire, invaded by the severe cold, or if his whole body was frozen, he would be close to death, because with just a light touch, his whole body would be shattered. Previously, the 8-winged Jinpeng had a large amount of this mysterious ice world fire hidden in his body, So he was severely injured. Now, this vast black ice world fire is blocking Wu Yu's path, with no way to dodge. If Wu Yu wants to kill him, he must withstand the entanglement of this black ice world fire. Come with me to kill. Even so, Wu Yu was actually prepared for it. He first underwent the immortal ape transformation, so that he had a stronger body and a more ferocious will, and the 10,000 dragon staff was more comfortable in his hand. Then, the most commonly used magical power of law, heaven, elephant, and earth is to freely change the body, allowing strength and speed to change respectively. Especially in terms of physical strength. Now, the mysterious ice world fire is coming. What Wu Yu wants is to rush over with force. He is much stronger than the puppets in resisting the ice, so at this time, let them follow him more and follow him to break through. Buzz. A golden light instantly plunged into the raging black flames. The deadly cold burned Wu Yu's body and penetrated into Wu Yu's flesh and blood from any position on his body. However, this definitely only lasted for a moment, because Wu Yu moved too fast, and his body's resistance to cold was also terrifyingly strong. With just a whoosh, Wu Yu had already seen Princess Yuking. The other party also saw him. It is true that Wu Yu is now covered in black fire, but he himself is not injured, but the black ice world fire is still wrapped around his body like maggots attached to his bones. If he does not defeat Princess Yuking, it will indeed be very troublesome. Death. Princess Yuking used all her abilities to engage in a life and death fight with Wu Yu, but she couldn't tell that she was already hysterical. Hoo ho ho. What made her depressed was that Wu Yu and the puppets rushed over one after another. Wu Yu's speed could not stop him at all. His body was only 1 foot tall. Maybe his strength was much smaller now, but relying on the magic movement and with the speed of Fa Tianxiang Earth, he rushed to Princess Yukang in the blink of an eye and struck a blow to the head, forcing Princess Yukang to cut off the Xianbing realm fire and retreat in panic. As soon as she stopped, Wu Yu's opportunity came again. At this time, the black and white impermanence passed by Wu Yu's left and right, and under Wu Yu's order, each activated their strongest magic circle. Hey Vuchain, that is the Hell Soul Killing Array. Bai Vuchain, that is the Tongue Ian Light Splitting Formation. Both of these are fatal magic circle attacks, one on the left and one on the right. Black Vuchain is a dark ghost, while white Vuchain opens and closes, a combination of dazzling light and darkness of shadow. With the cooperation of Princess Yuking, was instantly restrained, and fell into these two overlapping and extremely lethal magic circles. When Wu Yu resisted these two magic formations, he suffered a lot. The Frozen World. However, Princess Yuking is not bad. At this juncture, she can still use her magical power. That magical power forms a field, overlapping with the black and white impermanent magic circle. Within the field, the cold is extremely cold, and the other two magic circles are frozen. It had to run slowly, allowing Princess Yuxi to breathe. However, Wu Yu was right in front of her now, more than 3 feet tall, and she could only see Wu Yu's face by looking up. And the smashed Wanlong stick. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 667. This infinite dragon stick in the world feels rough to hold because of the presence of tens of thousands of divine dragon reliefs. Square root. Each small dragon relief can clearly feel its vigorous vitality, the vibration of power, and the connection between it and Wu Yu in the blood. So when using this spiritual weapon, the deepest feeling is not the roughness, but the destructive power of the 10,000 dragon stick. After Wu Yu added the violent technique, with 6 times the physical strength, it seemed easy to use the 10,000 dragon stick. After all, the weight of the 10,000 dragon stick is so heavy. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Princess Yuxi can use the magical power of Frozen Realm to block the 2 killing arrays of black and white impermanence, but at the same time, Wu Yu's fatal blow is too difficult for her. Buzz. Perhaps at this time, Princess Yuxi can only hear the sound of the 10,000 dragon stick tearing through space. Crack! At the last moment, the air around her froze into a large amount of black ice, and her body was instantly enveloped in an ice ball with a diameter of 1 foot. The ice ball emitted sharp ice edges and shone with cold light. However, Wu Yu's shocking and rough stick still smashed on the ice ball. For the absolute power Wu Yu possessed at this time, any Taoist magic was empty. Crack! The ice ball exploded and turned into shattered ice chips, splashing everywhere. The black ice was scattered all over the ground, making a ding-ding-ding sound. Wu Yu knew in his heart that this battle was over. In fact, he had a great confidence, especially with the help of the black and white impermanence, and he had a fatal killer move. Princess Yuxiang might be very difficult to deal with, and Wu Yu might not be able to do anything to her in a single battle. However, after watching her life and death battle before, Wu Yu still knew her methods very well. That's why even if he gave her a few days to prepare, he was only more than 90% sure that he could quickly deal with her. Under the one long stick, Princess Yuxiang was indeed unstoppable. Even if she wanted to live, she couldn't do it now. In terms of momentum and will, Wu Yu's killing crushed her will to live. However, what surprised Wu Yu was that under his destruction, Princess Yuxing did not die. She still held on. When the ice ball exploded, she was the largest fragment, and then turned into a human form, and lifted the state of the nether sea ice crystal. But at this time, she was pale all over. Although she seemed fine on the outside, her flesh, blood, bones, etc. were almost all shattered under the destruction of the infinite power of the 10,000 dragon stick. Now, she was soft all over, not to mention standing up, it was difficult to move her little finger. The flesh was almost completely destroyed. The infinite power will be evenly distributed to very small places. In fact, other people would have died at this point, but Wu Yu didn't expect that she was still holding on. At this time, the killing decision he made before was basically over, and he felt relaxed. He asked Hebai Vuchang and others to return to the Fusion Tower, and he stepped over the bodies that were frozen into ice sculptures by Princess Yuyan on the road. When he walked to her side, he first used the one long stick to pick up the Sumuru bag of the Taoist weapon level on Princess Yuyan, took it in his hand, and then looked at Princess Yuyan, who was lying on the ground and unable to move. Her ink-colored eyes were no longer cold at this time, but trembling, with real fear and despair, like a deer with its legs broken under the feet of a beast, looking at Wu Yu with trembling eyes. Frankly speaking, Wu Yu knew that he had done something quite crazy. Before he entered the ancient immortal road, or before he came to this mountain, he never dared to think that there would be such a moment. Once Princess Yuyan died, it was destined that no one would know. Wu Yu would throw away all the things of the few of them, as long as they were related to their identities, such as Taoist weapons, talismans, etc. Although crazy, if one's heart is not firm enough, he will be confused and doubtful at this time. When Wu Yu didn't. He knew the rules of this world of cultivation, and he also knew that what he did was shocking, but as the inheritor of the immortal, it was nothing. In terms of the height of Tao, he was no lower than them. At this time, looking down at this cold and beautiful woman from the north of the ancient Yanhuang domain, I have to say that sometimes before death, no matter how beautiful the face is, no matter how moving the body is, it is useless, because as long as she dies, it will be a beauty with bones. Send you the last journey. Wu Yu raised the one long stick and prepared to end her. Seeing her dying, she must be very uncomfortable. No, I don't want to die, Wu Yu, I have a way for you to let me live, and it's completely worry-free. Princess Yueying looked at him nervously and tremblingly, with bloodshot eyes. She really wanted to live, and she was really desperate enough to survive. However, Wu Yu had no need to take risks. Her survival was a fatal threat to Wu Yu. He did not change his movements. As long as the one long stick pressed down, she would say goodbye to the human world. See you in the next life. When that time comes, just don't be my opponent, Wu Yu said expressionlessly. Princess Yuking should understand that what Wu Yu wants is safety. At this moment, she was nervous, struggling, with tears in her eyes, and said with a cry, I have something that can allow you to control me like a slave. It can allow you to use me to make the Biming Empire your backing. You can let me be your slave for life. You can do whatever you want me to do for you. You can easily know all my thoughts. I can become your living puppet, Wu Yu, as long as you don't kill me, you can harvest it. It's so big, and there's no way I can escape your grasp. It was impossible for Wu Yu to change his decision. When he heard what she said, he became curious. What did she mean by this? Slavery? The Northern Underworld Empire? A living puppet? Princess Yuking's last will to survive prevented him from rushing to kill her. Everyone has the right to survive. If she could really come up with a solution at this last moment, Wu Yu might consider it. After all, his purpose was never to kill for the sake of killing. More often, he was forced to kill to save his life. Now Princess Yuking looked at him with only fear and panic in her eyes. Maybe this woman had been frightened by Wu Yu to the depths of her soul. What do you mean? Wu Yu's words at this time gave Princess Yuking hope of survival. She still looked at Wu Yu with a fearful look, but her voice became calmer. This was because she had to calm down, otherwise she would not be able to speak clearly or she would die. She said, I went to an ancient ruins before and got an ancient magic circle called the soul-controlling blood formation. You can draw it on me. After success, you can enslave me. All my thoughts, including no matter how far away you are from me, you can know what I am thinking. You can kill me on the spot at any time with just a thought. You are my master and can make me do anything, including what you want. The Empire of Hades protects you, and you can do whatever you want to me, including me. Before she could finish speaking, Ming Tong jumped out and said in surprise, the soul-controlling blood formation? Damn it, this kind of band magic formation still exists? In my time, 120,000 years ago, the soul-controlling blood formation has been completely lost and banned. Where is this girl's relic? Can you find this soul-controlling blood formation? This is a magic formation that has been lost for more than 1 UN. Lost in the world, I can only say that this thing is extremely domineering and inhumane, so it was jointly banned, and all the magic circles at that time were burned clean. Ghosts and gods lost in the world, Wu Yu realized that this meant that this thing was of a very high level, and that it was indeed a terrifying thing that had been jointly banned. It's not that this is a cruel method of ghost cultivation, but that the person who is subjected to this soul-controlling blood formation is really pitiful. This woman dares to say this thing, and she really doesn't want to die. It's true for her, it's better to be enslaved than to die, Ming Taki said with a smile. What is it specifically? Wu Yu asked. Ming Long chuckled and said, well, from what I heard, she is indeed right. You have to draw that angry soul magic circle on her body. She will be your slave, and her life will be yours. If you die, she will also die. Because of this, she doesn't dare to have the slightest idea of betraying you, because if she wants to betray, she must have an idea first. And once you have this idea, you can clearly know that the most important thing is that your one thought can make her return to the West. Just these 3 points, do you think this soul-controlling blood formation is ruthless? Others are simply not aware of the existence of the soul-controlling blood array on the enslaved person, at least there is no such person in the world. Although this thing is domineering and banned, it is indeed terrifying. Wu Yu was also shocked when he heard this. In this world, there is such a tyrannical method of slavery. The enslaved people are simply like animals. Of course, as long as you serve your master wholeheartedly, it won't be too miserable. If it was this level of slavery, even after she left, Wu Yu would know whatever thoughts Princess Yuking had, and he could kill her at any time, and if he died, she would die. Don't worry, she will go out and target you. Because, especially knowing her thoughts was enough for Wu Yu to restrain her. In fact, this is the most terrifying thing. As long as it succeeds, the slave will be transparent in front of the master. Most people are afraid of being enslaved by this soul-controlling blood formation, so they join forces to ban it. No one is willing to be enslaved, but compared to death, Princess Yuking chose the soul-controlling blood formation. It seemed that she really didn't want to die. Wu Yu, I have figured it out. In order to live, you will be my master from now on. I dare not think about anything. In this life, you will be the main one and I will serve around you, Princess Yuking said seriously. Maybe she gave up hatred just to survive. Hee, this is a princess from the immortal Cultivation dynasty. You have become her master. As long as she works hard, your right to speak in the Beiming Empire will be the same as hers. Moreover, you can have sex with her anytime, anywhere. Something about that Ming Long smiled evilly again. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 668. Wu Yu figured it out. It's like having a living puppet who serves himself in everything and puts himself first. Even if she has the slightest disrespect for herself, just a thought will cause the soul-controlling blood array to break out on her body, causing her unbearable pain. The soul-controlling blood formation was actually on Wu Yu's body at this time, in the sumuru bag he had just obtained from Princess Yuking. It was a blood-red scroll, woven from blood-colored bamboo. It was not bloody, but it had a soul-stirring power. When Wu Yu held the scroll in his hand, even he was stunned. Couldn't help shaking. Sure enough, it is a vicious thing. He gently opened the blood-red scroll and saw a woman without clothes engraved inside. Although the strokes were simple, they also outlined a seductive charm. However, what attracted Wu Yu the most was the blood-colored magic circle engraved on the woman's body. This magic circle was like a tattoo, densely packed, from her face all the way down, and finally to her feet. Every part had complex, weird texture. There is a large amount of text analysis around the scroll. The text is very ancient. Wu Yu can't understand some of the words, but Ming Long can understand them. It is indeed the soul-controlling blood formation. Ming Long took a look and said with certainty. During this process, Princess Yuking explained all the functions of the soul-controlling blood formation very clearly. Her eyes were filled with fear of death and fear of Wu Yu, but she had to calm down before she could say to Wu Yu, I know why you want to kill us. You have no choice but to do so because you have such a valuable treasure. We found out, you can't make the slightest mistake, otherwise you and your loved ones will be killed, so I don't think you are wrong, I am just shocked by your courage and means. Wu Yu, I know that even if I swear that I will never tell anything about what happened here after I go out, you can't believe me. Now that I have been defeated, death may be the only outcome. I lost to you. This I have nothing to say, but I don't want to die. I'm still young. I think you can understand my thoughts. Don't you have times when you don't want to die? And this soul-controlling blood formation is my only hope. I know that this soul-controlling blood array is horribly cruel to the person being used, and it is a complete loss of self, but this is better than disappearing into thin air. I know that you don't have any revenge for me, you are just for protection. I originally had no solution, but the soul-controlling blood formation can, I beg you. If Wu Yu was allowed to make his own choice, he felt that the soul-controlling blood formation was indeed a type of formation that should be banned. Ghostly things. But at the moment, this is Princess Yukion's request and plea. She made such a choice voluntarily in order not to die. Even if Wu Yu accepted it, it was to find a way to spare her life. Princess Yuking was trying her best to fight for her, or she was rationally analyzing it for Wu Yu. If Chu Chu was pitiful, she was trying to win Wu Yu's sympathy. However, Wu Yu still looked indifferent for the time being, and he was also thinking about it. Wu Yu wouldn't let her go just because she was a woman. The other reasons why he didn't take action immediately were secondary. The most important reason was that the soul-controlling blood formation was overbearing enough and basically looked back. No worries, very little risk. The second is the resources behind Princess Yuking. There is a princess of the Beiming Empire who is devoted to herself. Her background power is basically equal to Wu Yu's background power. This is what Wu Yu needs most. Otherwise, Wu Yu would always be a desperado in the Yanhuang ancient territory. Everyone can bully him and oppress him with Dongsheng Shenzhou. Although the Beiming Empire is not the ancient Yanhuang kingdom, it is still a major overlord in the Jamfa world, occupying most of the Beiming Empire. If I can use Princess Yuking and the Beiming Empire to be my backing, then I can reduce a lot of torture and be able to better protect my family and friends. But there is always a certain risk in keeping her alive. What if she must fight me to the death? He was temporarily inclined to spare her life, but he still had some concerns. Minglong said, based on my understanding of the soul-controlling blood array, the risk is basically not big, because she only needs to have a slight thought against you. In fact, the soul-controlling blood array will automatically react and kill her. Only then. This is what scares people about the soul-controlling blood formation. I guess that in order to prevent herself from having such thoughts, she needs to start hypnotizing herself now and treat you as her master. She doesn't even dare to think about it. In this legend, it is a relic left by ghosts and gods in the human world. With the power of ghosts and gods, this soul-controlling blood formation will definitely be perfect to the extreme. The person controlled will feel like he has lost his soul. In terms of risks, you don't have to worry too much. Besides, it feels so comfortable to have such a beautiful woman who can be enslaved by you anytime, anywhere. I really envy you. If I were a man, I would be better off with this one. After saying this, Minglong laughed ambiguously. Screw you. Wu Yu himself is also analyzing. Since there is basically no risk, and we can have the help of the Beiming Empire, at least we can go to the Yanhuang ancient territory and have a place to go for the time being. From this point of view, it seems that this is indeed possible. He lowered his head and stared at Princess Yuking. The other party placed all his life's hopes on Wu Yu. At this time, his eyes were full of tears and he looked at Wu Yu tremblingly. To be honest, women generally show this pitiful look, especially beautiful women. No matter how cruel a man is, it is difficult for him to kill someone. Wu Yu is also a normal man. Although he had no idea about Princess Yuxiang, she was a stunningly beautiful woman, which was a natural advantage. If it was any other demon, such as the Eternal Shark or the 9-star Snow Chi, Wu Yu would never have said so much nonsense to him. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Wu Yu, I know that the soul-controlling blood formation is cruel, but I know that once a person dies, there is nothing left. I want to live no matter what the price. This is a choice I made voluntarily. You will not suffer any loss and will have better gains. If the soul-controlling blood formation succeeds, and I have any thoughts that are not good for you, you will notice it faster than I do. Then you can kill me, right? I am unlucky to meet you in this situation today. But I hope that the soul-controlling blood formation and my identity as the princess of the Beiming Empire can keep me alive. Please, Wu Yu. As she spoke, her crystal tears flowed down. Indeed, once a person dies, there is really nothing left. Although the soul-controlling blood formation is cruel, death is even crueler. And as she said, even if the soul-controlling blood formation succeeds, she can die at any time if she wants her to. It's not cruel, but I am controlled by you in this life. I will treat you as my friend and my relative. I am willing to listen to your orders. That's nothing. If I don't want to retaliate against you, you won't treat me too badly, right? In order to survive, Princess Yuxiang really tried her best. She was originally cold-blooded and ruthless, but now she was crying and completely collapsed. She was almost kneeling on the ground to beg Wu Yu. Finally, Wu Yu made a decision. He nodded. Princess Yuyan was overjoyed when she saw this. She still couldn't move, but the way she looked at Wu Yu had completely changed. The fear, even the disgust and hatred she had before, had completely disappeared. Instead, she was worshipped and surrendered. It was as if Wu Yu had become the whole world in her eyes. She looked at Wu Yu blankly, like a little woman. She is very smart and knows how to treat you in the future. This is the only way for her to survive. Of course, you were too domineering this time and completely convinced her. For girls, if they are severely punished and completely convinced, they will have a kind of dependence and worship towards you. After all, they like to be abused. This soul-controlling blood formation, I guess she will enjoy it soon. You should be careful about your emotional debt. Minglong laughed. No, I don't have any feelings for her. Wu Yu was still very firm in his heart. After he nodded and agreed, he first studied the soul-controlling blood array. The soul-controlling blood array was not difficult. The main thing was to be able to draw the array successfully. This was a pattern from hell, and the mystery was all in this pattern. However, you must use your fingers to pierce the opponent's skin, and then scratch the skin to draw the array. Finally, the blood gushing out of the wound will form the array, which is the soul-controlling blood array. You don't need the soul, you can just copy it directly. However, basically, every time you complete a pattern, you need to recite the formula to attract something called blood sacrifice air, which is entangled in the pattern, and then it is considered completed. Wu Yu didn't know if there would be blood sacrifice air here, so he would just try it anyway. If it didn't work, it would mean that Princess Yuxiang had no luck to survive. You had to scratch all over your body. So, all her clothes had to be torn. It's really a method of ghosts and gods. When he really executed it, when his fingers scratched her snow-white skin, Wu Yu thought, just kill her. But at this time, Princess Yuxiang looked at him with tears in her eyes and begged, "Don't kill me, I volunteered, please. It's really hard. However, I had just promised her and gave her hope of survival. Killing her again would be more cruel to her." So, Wu Yu still insisted. 3 updates today. After writing, the madman turned on the TV, CCTV 5, and waited for a big battle. The madman is a die-hard football fan. Football is a war in peacetime. This kind of sport inspires passion and fierce fighting. It is a collision between races and countries. The Chinese nation is very strong, but Chinese football is very weak. There are many reasons for weakness, which have nothing to do with the players. It is the inevitable result of the entire country's football culture and youth training being too low. In football club competitions, everyone can choose their favorite team, but national football, not possible. Chinese football is the home team of every Chinese. Even if you dislike the national football team, if the national football team loses, the Chinese lose. Today, the Persian cavalry Iran came to Shenyang. I believe many people are waiting with me. No matter how strong the opponent is, we must fight hard. Football is the most influential sport in the world. It is a duel between physical strength and willpower, skills, and combat effectiveness among each nation. It is a fact that the Chinese team is weak, but even if it is a weak team, I support my nation and country. Which strong team did not start fighting from the weak? Tonight, support Chinese football. Support Chinese men. Winning or losing does not matter, just fight to the end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 669. Chapter 662 Way Out. The soul-controlling blood formation has a kind of magic. Once it starts, you will be immersed in the blood-red world of this formation, and it is difficult to stop and difficult to extricate yourself. As long as you start, it is like being pulled into a blood-colored vortex. In the magic of the formation, you are in a trance. When Wu Yu realized that it was almost time to stop, it was actually over. A few days passed. The soul-controlling blood formation successfully entered Princess Yuyan's body, disappeared into it, but existed in every corner of her body. Now looking down, there is no scar on her body. On the white jade like Wang Xiantai, this delicate body can be called art, without any trace of the soul-controlling blood formation. Is it successful? This is much easier than Wu Yu imagined. He looked at his fingers. At the tip of his right middle finger, there was a small blood-colored formation, which was connected to the soul-controlling blood formation on Princess Yuyan. Wu Yu used this small formation to control the soul-controlling blood formation and Princess Yuyan. At this time, Wu Yu began to have a strange feeling, as if blood was connected, and there seemed to be one more person in his consciousness, that is Princess Yuxing. This thought was not dominated by Wu Yu, but Wu Yu knew clearly all her thoughts at this moment. Even if he closed his eyes, Princess Yuxing's soul and spirit seemed to be exposed under his eyelids without any obstruction. Everything she thought about, all her thoughts, would pass through Wu Yu's consciousness. It is said that if there is a dangerous thought, Wu Yu will feel a very strong stimulation. This mysterious feeling of being able to completely control the other party is really terrifying. Wu Yu is a little frightened now. He doesn't know if he is right to use this ghost method. But from Princess Yuxing's body, it is true that the soul-controlling blood formation is hidden to the extreme, and only he, the master, can detect it. Through the small formation on the finger, the other party's life is implicated in his life. Once he dies, she must die. At the same time, Wu Yu could control her life at any time. As long as he had a thought and wiped off the small formation on his finger, the soul control blood formation could make her die instantly. The most amazing thing was the connection of consciousness. Of course, it was a one-sided connection. It was said that no matter what was in between, Wu Yu could know what she was thinking at any time and anywhere, and could even convey simple information to her. And now, when he touched her mind for the first time, what Wu Yu saw was her shyness. After all, the process of the soul control blood formation was a challenge for any woman, especially now that nothing could escape Wu Yu's eyes. Even if Wu Yu didn't look at her now, she was getting more flustered. From her consciousness, Wu Yu could even see some of the hot scenes she imagined. Put it on, her sumuru bag was still in her hand, so there were no clothes. Wu Yu grabbed a handful of clothes from it and threw them to her. He turned his back. To be honest, his heart skipped a few beats. After all, the other party was a princess, and she was first imagining how to do this and that with him. Perhaps Princess Yuyan only realized at this time how shameful it would be to have her thoughts monitored by someone. In front of Wu Yu, she was in an unprecedented state of embarrassment. When Wu Yu responded coldly, she was frustrated again, feeling extremely bitter, and quickly sorted herself out. After a few days, she recovered a little from the previous serious injury. Her bitterness, depression, and embarrassment, in fact, could not escape Wu Yu's eyes. Wu Yu actually still admired her a little bit. In order to survive, she could bear this. You ignored my life before and trampled on my life. Although I didn't kill you now, this soul-controlling blood array is also a great punishment. From now on, we have no hatred, but since you have chosen the soul-controlling blood array, you must not resist when I need your help. At other times, as long as you are obedient, I will not abuse you, let alone let you lose your dignity. The soul-controlling blood array has been completed, and Wu Yu must make it clear to her. In fact, she didn't need to say anything. Princess Xuanhuan knew the soul-controlling blood formation very well. So at this time, she felt shy, bitter, sad, etc., but she didn't dare to have any hostility or dissatisfaction towards Wu Yu. She should have adjusted herself completely. At this time, she looked at Wu Yu as if she was looking at her master, with only respect. Wu Yu had many secrets. At this time, she became Wu Yu's close friend, but she didn't dare to ask or know any of them. The more she respected and relied on Wu Yu in her eyes and heart, the more Wu Yu knew the horror of the soul-controlling blood formation. Little guy, don't just be happy secretly, you forgot one thing, haha. Suddenly, Minglong laughed again with gloating. Wu Yu had a bad feeling and asked, "What do you mean?" Minglong curled his lips and said, "I knew you would be blinded by beauty and forget about this. She can't enter the Fusheng Tower, so you can't take her away at all. She can't leave this Wangxiantai, what's the difference between life and death?" Wu Yu was really depressed. He found that he had really wasted his efforts and actually forgot about this matter. Just now, Princess U11 took out the soul control blood formation and shocked him, which aroused his great curiosity. He even completed the soul control blood formation in succession, and never thought that he couldn't take her out at all. "You knew it a long time ago. Why didn't you say it just now?" Wu Yu said depressedly. "Haha, this girl just wants to see you use the soul control blood formation." "What, you think you can bully me?" Minglong looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. She has always been so rogue. This is indeed the case. If Princess Yuking cannot be taken out, the soul-controlling blood formation will be in vain. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. I can get out of this Wangxian terrace, but Princess Yuking still has to wait here to die slowly. From this point of view, it is better to kill her. It can only be said that the magic power of the soul-controlling blood formation was too great, which made Wu Yu forget about this matter. Princess Yuking didn't know about this. Wu Yu saw her eyes dim with tears and looking at him pitifully. Although she was a little pitiful, she had to tell the truth at this time. He told Princess Yuking about the Fusion Tower. Explained clearly, and finally said, "I'm sorry, I really only remembered it at this time. I have made you happy in vain, and I can't take you out for the time being." Without her needing to answer, Wu Yu knew that she was panicked and in pain, and without looking at her expressions or movements, the soul-controlling blood formation would tell Wu Yu if there was any movement in her thoughts. The current Princess Yuking is indeed very different from the cold and cold-blooded time before. After all, Wu Yu completely conquered her. "I will think of a way, but don't have high hopes," that was all Wu Yu could say. Now, his decision and revenge have been completed, and everyone except Princess Yuking has returned to the West. He knows what a shocking event he has done, but no one will know about it, so now that his heart is quiet, he doesn't have much of thrilling. The appearance of the light and shadow of the Monkey King made him feel much firmer now. Not even afraid. Princess Yuking sat on the ground, weeping for her tragic fate, while Wu Yu borrowed the floating tower to go out to the observation immortal platform, and now there was dirt everywhere above his head. Now, except for me and the princess of the Beiming Empire, everyone has left the Taku Immortal Road. I am also buried here underground. However, I should still be able to have a try on the Taku Immortal Road. There is still a chance now, so Wu Yu goes back to Dongsheng Shenzhou without any rush. It was originally possible to go directly to the Beiming Empire, or to other places in the Yanhuang ancient territory, but now it seems that Princess Yuking cannot go back, so he can only go back to Dongsheng Shenzhou. With his current strength, even in Dongsheng Divine Continent, it is not a big problem to go to the Yanhuang ancient territory, so the first choice is to go back. After all, the matter of the heaven-devouring demon ancestor may not be resolved yet. He summoned a group of puppets, 7 or 8 of them, headed by Black and White Vuchang. They started from the Wangxian terrace, dug holes upwards, and dug up the soil buried above their heads. Wu Yu himself did not do anything to let these puppets. Puppet, dig a passage for yourself. Looking down, Princess Yuking was trying hard to use some Taoist techniques to recover from her injuries. Seeing how hard she worked, Wu Yu checked her sumuru bag and took away some Dao Yuan Shen Dan. The remaining items, as long as they were precious, were basically exclusive to her and could not be taken out for use. So Wu Yu threw it back to her. After Princess Yuking caught it, she cast a grateful look at Wu Yu. "I'll go." Wu Yu was startled. It seemed that the princess had completely obeyed him. He returned some things himself, and the other party seemed to burst into tears of gratitude. According to Ming Long, she would probably be willing to do whatever Wu Yu asked her to do now. If he can let her out, she has an identity, which can really help him a lot. Unfortunately, Wang Xiantai still couldn't do anything. Wu Yu tried a few times, but he was still unable to bring Princess Yuki into the Fusion Tower. Wu Yu thought about putting her into the sumuru bag and immediately taking her into the Fusion Tower. Unfortunately, even the Taoist-level sumuru bag could not bear her. As soon as she entered, the magic circle collapsed immediately. In fact, Wu Yu tried it, and she seemed satisfied. Wu Yu couldn't believe this kind of soft, obedient Princess Yukin who was dominated by Wu Yu. In the next few days, Wu Yu sorted out all the harvest and threw away the things that could not be used. Even though there were many precious things, they were exclusive to these geniuses. Once someone found out that he had these things, he would trouble. As for which ones are exclusive and which ones are not, just ask Princess Yuking. In the end, he left a lot behind. Among them, there are countless elixirs and fairy spirits, relatively few Taoist tools and techniques, and not many talismans. Among them, there are many Dao Yuan Shen pills. After Wu Yu upgraded all the clones to the top level, there are still a large number of Dao Yuan Shen pills left, which is enough for him to spend a long time. He didn't even bother to count, there were so many anyway. The puppets didn't know they were tired and dug a long tunnel directly to the sky. It is estimated that they will be able to dig to the ground soon. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 670. Wu Yu was outside the Wangxian terrace, and Princess Yuxiang was trapped inside. Above the white fluorescent light, the woman's body was crystal clear, her hair was scattered, and her eyes were bright. When she was not so strong and cold, she was indeed a different style, very attractive. The women on Dongsheng Shenzhou, Nangongwei, Jilinglong, etc., were all one level lower than her. After all, she was born in the Cultivation dynasty by Ming Empire. As soon as she was born, she was the pride of the world of Yanfu. And she was different from Emperor Li. Emperor Li was just one of the emperor's sons in the ancient country of Yanhuang. The ancient emperor of Yanhuang had many emperors. There were not many princesses in the Biming Empire. Especially the pair of black eyes, deep and cold, with a little confusion. She looked like this, making Wu Yu a little unable to remember how she had been scheming to seize the Shangling Daokai and kill himself. One thing is one thing. She violated Wu Yu and was punished now. Wu Yu no longer hated her. But it must be said that he really couldn't send her away. So, when the passage above was dug through, if there was a way out, Wu Yu should go out and continue to move forward in this ancient immortal road, and alone. As for Princess Yuyan, she might have to stay here alone. It depends on her whether she commits suicide or endures endless loneliness. Although the 7 peaks collapsed and the soil was very thick, Wu Yu had many puppets. He felt that it was almost done, so he followed behind. The higher he went, the easier it was to dig. Finally, when Bai Vuchang rushed out of the ground, Wu Yu saw the whistling and strong light of the purple lightning again. It was dug through. The 7 peaks collapsed, making the sharp thunder peak on the top of his head become round now. Wu Yu is now digging a hole at the top of this thunder peak. He had just recalled the puppet and came out of the passage. What he saw and felt was of course the terrifying purple thunder. The entire thunder peak was completely covered by dense, hundreds of billions of lightning. Standing in Wu Yu's position, the dense lightning network was only a dozen feet away from the mountain wall, and some places were even pressed and stuck to the mountain wall. All the rocks and land on the mountain peak had been burned black. A large amount of lightning was like an electric snake, drilling in and out of the soil and air, making a sharp whistle, continuously. Wu Yu's ears were buzzing as soon as he came out. Looking at the endless thunder and lightning above his head, which was impossible to break through, Wu Yu had a headache. The situation here was different from before. Standing here, he could not see any way out of the mountain. The endless and brutal lightning network completely trapped him on the mountain peak, and even the passage leading to the sky before was gone now. Where else can I go in this ancient immortal road? Now, I am the only one left. Could it be that my fate with this ancient immortal road can only go here? Looking at this vast, mysterious, incredible, and unimaginable world, which brought Wu Yu a huge breakthrough and even changed his destiny, to be honest, Wu Yu finally climbed to the top here, and he was really reluctant to leave here. He is very good at surviving in this world, especially after owning the floating life tower. To be honest, he really didn't want to leave here for the time being. There are too many secrets in the ancient immortal road. He really wants to know what this place is all about. Thinking of the floating life tower. By the way, since the floating life tower can let me go in and out of so many places, can it let me pass through this lightning and thunder network? Wu Yu suddenly had an idea. With this risky decision, he was ready to let the puppet eight-armed god general throw himself out of the floating life tower with great force. The lightning here comes from a very terrifying magic circle. Once it is touched, it may be attacked by the entire magic circle. The floating life tower may not be able to withstand such an attack. Are you sure? Ming Long asked. We have to try it. If it doesn't work, we can only leave here immediately, Wu Yu said firmly. He is now at his most daring. He stood at the entrance of the tunnel he dug and looked down to see the deepest Wangxiantai, where there was only a little light. Princess Yuyan was crying when she saw Wu Yu leaving. Wu Yu could still clearly know what she was thinking. Wu Yu couldn't control her. She entered the floating life tower and let the huge puppet eight-armed god come out. The eight-armed god held the floating life tower and accumulated strength. When he heard Wu Yu's order, he activated the magic circle and smashed the floating life tower towards the lightning network above his head. Tense moment. The floating life tower turned into a white light, which was only more than 10 feet away. It arrived in an instant. Wu Yu could feel the floating life tower and the countless thunders colliding with each other at this moment. Bang! What disappointed Wu Yu was that the floating life tower did not pass through, but was bounced back, just bounced back to Wu Yu's original position. At this time, the floating life tower was still wrapped with purple thunder, and was directly smashed into the passage by the rebound force. Wu Yu was in the floating life tower, of course, he couldn't stop it, until the floating life smashed into the lookout ferry platform. Bang! The floating life tower even smashed the ferry platform into a crack. Wu Yu didn't expect that the power of the purple lightning was so huge. He came out of the floating life tower and didn't give up. Princess Yuqian was overjoyed to see him come in again, and wanted to come up and hug Wu Yu. Wu Yu glanced at her, and she stayed where she was, with a face full of grievance, and she stuck out her sweet and tender tongue at Wu Yu, looking particularly cute. Maybe she thought Wu Yu was still trying to take her out. In her mind, amidst the grievance, there was still surprise. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. She seemed to have become a little woman, completely intoxicated by Wu Yu's majesty and tyranny. But Wu Yu ignored her. He was about to go out and try again. When he was about to look up, through the passage, he suddenly saw that the huge lightning network above his head seemed to have changed. It seemed that the place where the fusion tower had just touched had condensed a lot of lightning, and a huge thunder vortex had vaguely formed. A terrifying force was accumulating at that location. What's going on? Wu Yu was quite surprised. The thunder above suddenly had an explosive change, and even the eight-armed god standing in the position just now was almost engulfed by the violent purple lightning. Wu Yu hurriedly let the puppet come down first. It is dangerous to be in the immortal watching platform. Once a situation occurs, the ancient immortal road cannot be used, so Wu Yu directly asked Princess Yuxing to throw him and the floating life tower out. Wu Yu stood on the immortal watching platform again at this time, and he recalled the eight-armed god general. At this time, what surprised him was that this was no longer a change in the lightning above his head. He felt that the entire thunder peak was shaking. At this time, the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. I just used the floating life tower to hit the magic circle, and it caused such a change. This thunder peak is about to collapse. Wu Yu was quite speechless at this time. He felt that such a guess was exaggerated, but what he felt at this time was clearly like the destruction of the entire world. This was no longer just a matter of this mountain. And on the passage, the position where the floating life tower touched just now, at this time, I don't know how huge the vortex was formed, and how much terrifying power was accumulated. Maybe it was this huge vortex that made the giant peak tremble. Wu Yu even seemed to see that even the battery thunder sea in the heavy dark clouds in the sky was sinking at this time and merging into the thunder vortex. Such a terrifying power. Wu Yu had a creepy feeling from such a distance. He felt that if he was still in the same position just now, 10,000 lives would not be enough to die. This was a terrifying power that Wu Yu had never seen before. Fortunately, it was not exerted by a human, but came from the wonderful changes of the ancient immortal road. The passage was not wide, and he could not see clearly. Moreover, the mountain was shaking at this time, and the passage would collapse immediately. It was unimaginable how huge the thunder vortex was at this time. It might be enough to swallow the entire mountain. However, this vortex was not here to swallow the mountain, but to bomb it. That's right. At the last moment of the passage collapse, Wu Yu saw that the center of the thunder vortex condensed into a thick dark purple lightning column, which burst out with a sharp roar, making the whole world tremble wildly, and the direction of the dark purple lightning column was exactly Wu Yu's direction, that is to say, if he hesitated a little, the lightning column would be smashed to pieces. The entire thunder peak, as huge as the entire Qingtianshu mountain, is probably going to be buried with Wu Yu. Wu Yu really didn't expect that he would cause such a commotion just by touching it with the floating life tower. He was also confused at this time. Hurry up! Otherwise, there will be no time. Ming Long was also frightened and his face turned pale, and he screamed hurriedly. This power of heaven and earth, even if you hide in the floating life tower, you can't escape it. Its target is likely to be the floating life tower, and Wu Yu can't abandon the floating life tower. When Ming Long roared in fear, Wu Yu knew that it was time for him to leave the ancient immortal road. He thought it through. After all, he was the only one left at this time, and it was worth it to have such a terrifying movement before leaving. Although it was a bit of a pity, although he still wanted to continue exploring this wonderful world, at this time, he had to make a decision quickly and leave quickly. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely come back to the ancient immortal road. Wu Yu put away the fusion tower, put away everything, took out the ancient immortal talisman of Dongsheng Shenzhou, and activated it. Below him was the immortal watching platform. Under the divine power of heaven and earth, even the thunder peak was shattered. The lightning above his head had swallowed up the soil and rocks. The immortal watching platform under Wu Yu's feet was cracking at this time. From Princess Yuxi's sight, she saw Wu Yu being swallowed by the lightning, and then the lightning bombarded the barrier of the immortal watching platform. And Wu Yu's last glance was that Princess Yuxi stood straight. She didn't seem to be very scared. Wu Yu felt the peace of her soul. If she couldn't see the immortal watching platform, this might be her best ending. However, Wu Yu still saw that she took out the ancient immortal talisman. Maybe she was preparing for the final attempt. After all, the immortal watching platform seemed to be destroyed at this time. Maybe she could succeed. Under the light of the ancient immortal talisman, Wu Yu returned to a familiar place. The place where the dream originated, the green waves and mountains.